Welcome learners to this mini lecture corresponding with Lewis Mumford's Technics and Civilization, pages 196 to 199. The increase in energy during the Paleotechnic phase was the linchpin of the changes that occurred. This increase in energy rested on two main factors. One, new means of utilizing fuel. An example of this was a steam engine using wood, then using coal to create steam which would power machinery. And two, there was an increase in available stores of fuel. An example of that was coal could be mined, transported, and stockpiled for use at a later time. It could be strategically located, for instance, railroads. Along certain railroad stops, there were places where the steam engines could stop and reload for coal. So it could be taken to wherever the supply needed to be, rather than in the past using wind, using water. The power sources had to be located, or the machines had to be located where those power sources were located. So as we look at this power, the increased power, number one, it decreased the amount of time taken for a task. But at the same time, there were, as we've talked about, kind of one general theme here during this Paleotechnic phase is a huge increase in output, in horsepower, in the amount of power, in the rate of production, but also a lack of concern for inefficiency, or a lack of concern for efficiency. So that inefficiencies existed that wasted a lot of the time that was saved through this increased power output. The regimentation of time, which we talked about earlier in the course when we talked about the clock being the key machine of Technics, was completed with the production of cheap watches. Switzerland was an early leader in this area, but a city in the U.S., Waterbury, Connecticut, also led the world in watch production. In fact, by 1910, the Ingersoll Watch Company was selling 3.5 million of its $1 pocket watches per year. Standardization and mass production made this product affordable to the masses, and while also profitable to the company. Time, if you look at time saving as a part of labor saving, and also time as a commodity. And we have a threaded discussion on time as a commodity, but we know that commodities increase in value when there's less of a supply. They decrease in value when there's more of a supply. Just like labor is a commodity, time was also a commodity. And then rapid transportation even changed the method of timekeeping. So during this Paleotechnic phase, even the method of timekeeping changed. Before the railroad and the need for standardization, each town would be on a different time because the sun time varies about 1 minute for every 8 miles as someone travels east to west. So if somebody traveled from, let's say somebody traveled from Wheeling to Columbus, for instance, that might be about 12, the clock in that town might be about 12 minutes different because of the sun time. So with the railroad and rapid transportation, where you could travel from Wheeling to Columbus fairly quickly, there needed to be a standard time. So that's when standard time came into use. Time zones were invented or developed so that everybody within that time zone would set their clocks and be on the same time. So as we look at a summary, the increase in power and acceleration of movement really became ends in themselves rather than means to achieve ends. So as we wrap up this mini lecture, remember to complete the activity corresponding with this mini lecture. Also make sure to complete the essay question corresponding with this mini lecture on the Learning Session 7 assessment. As always, if you have any questions or problems, please contact your instructor. Thank you for watching this mini lesson.